ONE80 Kids, your friend Zoe here. I just want to share this story this morning with you about a lost son. And actually in the Bible, he's called the Prodigal Son. And prodigal, I had to look it up too because I wasn't sure what prodigal actually meant. I actually thought it meant a lost son. But prodigal is somebody who spends their money or their gifts or their wealth in a wasteful way. Like they just throw it away. They might as well take the money and just throw it out the window, or take their gifts, like their talents and things that they do well, that they could offer to God, and just throw those out the window, right? It's just wasting. So in this parable, it's like one of the stories that Jesus would tell to the people. In this parable, there are two sons. Now, the youngest son comes to the father and he says, "Hey, father, why don't you give me my part of the inheritance?" And an inheritance in those days was something that the father would have been working for all of his life, was probably handed down to him from his father, and then passed on from generation to generation, right? This is a really special thing. And it would have been passed on to his sons at the end of his life. So the father thinks about it, and he goes ahead and he gives his son his portion of the inheritance, his portion of the money. And the son decides, hey, I'm going to take off. I'm going to leave the country and I'm going to go spend my money the way I want. I'm going to just do whatever I want, and I don't want anybody telling me what to do or how to spend it. And so that was his plan. So he gathered up everything he had. He was not planning on coming back. He was out of here. So he gathered up everything he had and packed his bags. He left like servants, a beautiful home, like everything his father owned. His father provided everything for him, and everything he could possibly need was at his father's house. But he was leaving. He was going to go do his own thing, and that's exactly what he did. So he took off. And when he was out, he spent his money on all kinds of stuff. And when I say stuff, I mean like for us nowadays, of course we're talking Jesus time, but for us nowadays, like he would have blown it on fancy cars and Nintendo games and big parties and doing crazy stuff. And I'm sure a lot of things that God our Father would not be very happy about. So he blows all his money. And while he's in this other country, they have what's called a famine. In other words, they are running very low on food. And it doesn't really matter if you have a whole lot of money, because there's no food for anybody, but it's really bad if you are poor. And this guy is dirt poor. He spent everything. He has nothing. So now he has to go out and get a job, a real job. So he finds a job, but the only job that he can get is working with the pigs, like feeding pigs. So here he is, feeding pigs, and he's looking at their food as his belly is grumbling and thinking, oh my goodness, I wish I had a bite of the slop that these pigs are eating. I don't know if you guys know anything about pigs. But usually, often when pigs are fed, they're just fed like the table scraps, and it's actually called slop. Everything that is left over, like the garbage from your table. And this poor guy was so hungry, he's looking at the pig slop and thinking, oh my goodness, I want some of that. But nobody offered him a bite. And, he's heading home that night and he's thinking to himself, man, even the hired men in my father's house, even the people who are his servants and work for him, have food to eat. And he thought, oh man, I'm just going to go back to my father's house. I'm just going to go back to my dad and I'm going to say, Father, I have sinned against you and I've sinned against God, and I just want you to make me one of your hired hands. I'll just work for you. And, because even his hired hands they're not short of anything. So he decides that's what I'm going to do. He makes that plan and he starts heading home. And he had a long ways to go. Like he was in another country and they didn't have planes back then. So he's walking or whatever, and he's spending all this time thinking about what he's going to say to his dad. And so he gets back home. He's coming up on the ranch, and he sees someone way off in the distance. And he's looking and he's looking, and he realizes it's his dad. It's his father. And his father is running towards him. And when he gets to him, he grabs a hold of him and he hugs him and he kisses him. And he kisses him again and again and again because he's so happy to see his son. And automatically, the son just bursts into the speech and he starts saying, "Oh, Father, forgive me. I've sinned against you and I've sinned against God. And I just want you to make me one of the hired hands in your house." And the father just kind of like blows that off. He totally ignores what he's saying. And he calls out to his servants and he says, "Get the best robes and get some shoes for my boy's feet and get the ring of authority and put it on his finger." And he's like, "My son is home. Get the biggest cow we have and let's have a barbecue. Let's celebrate. Let's have a party." And that's just what they begin to do. Meanwhile, they're partying up. They're so excited that the son is home that then the older son, he hears it out on the ranch. He's out there working out on the farm and he hears all the chaos, and he comes running in and everybody's partying and music's going and he's like, "What on earth is going on?" He turns to one of the servants and he said, "Hey, what's up?" And the guy goes, "Oh man, your younger brother came home and your father has thrown a huge party. Come on in." And he's like, "What?" And the father hears about it. And he goes out to talk to the son. And he's like, "Son, come in. Your brother who was lost has made it home. And we're celebrating." And the older son, he is not excited. He is not happy. He's like, "I have worked for you for years. I have never disobeyed you. And yet you have never in all this time thrown a party for me. What's up?" And the father's like, "Oh, but my son was lost and now he's home. Let's celebrate." So the elder brother, hearing that this party was going on, didn't want anything to do with it. And when the father heard about that, he went out to talk to the older son. And he said, "Dad, what is going on? My brother, runs away, spends all the money, and he comes back and you throw him a party? I've been here for years. I've never disobeyed you. And in all this time, you have never thrown me a party for me and my friends, you've never celebrated with me." And the father looked at him and he said, "My boy, you have been with me all this time. You have everything that I have. Everything that I have is yours already." And it didn't matter to the son. It didn't matter to the older son. And he went away sad. And the father was sad. In this parable, the father who was wronged was forgiving. But the older brother who hadn't been wronged, he wasn't forgiving at all. And what Jesus did was kind of give us a picture of what God our Father is like and how he loves us. When we have a repentant heart and we are sorry, when we are sorrowful for what we've done, he forgives us. It doesn't matter what we've done. He forgives us and he loves us and he welcomes us home and he holds us tight. I just want you guys to remember that is your Heavenly Father. That's your God. The one who loves you no matter what. And also to remember that your brothers and your sisters are your friends and other people who come to see him or come to know him or come back to him. And we want to rejoice with our Father when that happens. Yeah, you guys can be just as loving as your dad, your heavenly dad. And I just bless you, 180 Kids. Just love you guys. And Lord, I just pray that you speak to their hearts, Lord, and that they hear clearly, that they hear your voice, that you're their loving daddy, Lord, that you're their loving Father. And Father, I just ask that we all have hearts that are willing to rejoice when the prodigal comes home. Thanks for listening, 180 Kids. Bless you guys. Bye.